It was watching them, its glowing eyes unblinking, barely 20 feet from the campfire. And then, it spoke. But the voice, it was human. In the stark, bone-dry expanse of the Navajo Nation, where the winds seem to carry ancient voices and shadows stretch impossibly long, the legend of the Skinwalker is not just a story, it's a bone-chilling reality whispered between generations. For centuries, the Navajo people have warned of Yi Naldlushi, a being so feared that many refuse to even utter its name aloud. The Skinwalker, a witch with the power to shapeshift, adopting the forms of animals, or worse, of trusted kin, to inflict harm or sow terror. But what truly unsettles the heart isn't just its ability to change form. It's that beneath every mask, a living, cursed soul remains, driven by malevolent intent. In 1996, a family known as the Shermans purchased a sprawling cattle ranch in Utah's remote Uinta Basin, an area long associated with paranormal activity and indigenous warnings. The ranch came with an ominous history and an eerie stipulation. The previous owners pleaded with the Shermans not to dig on certain parts of the land. The reason? They claimed it would awaken something unspeakable. Initially dismissing the old tales, the Shermans pressed on with life. But soon, the land began to whisper its secrets. One evening, just after sunset, Tom Sherman and his teenage son noticed a massive wolf-like creature approaching their cattle pen. Oddly calm yet unnervingly focused, the beast walked on oversized paws, its eyes gleaming an unnatural yellow. It didn't flinch when approached. Alarmed, Tom shot the creature at point-blank range with his rifle, but the bullets had no effect. The beast simply stared back, unfazed. Moments later, it retreated slowly into the dense brush, leaving behind no blood, no tracks, only an unbearable sense of dread. But this was just the beginning. The Shermans began to experience a relentless barrage of bizarre phenomena. Their prized cattle were found mutilated with surgical precision. Glowing orbs danced silently above their fields at night. Invisible forces slammed doors, rearranged tools, and terrorized the family. Then came the voices. Late one night, Tom's wife Gwen heard what sounded like her mother calling her name from just outside the house. But when she opened the door, the yard was empty, save for the faint outline of a large humanoid figure crouched by the fence. When Tom rushed out with his rifle, the figure vanished into the darkness, leaving only strange clawed imprints in the ground. Increasingly desperate, the Shermans reached out to local Navajo elders. The answer they received was chilling. The land was cursed. You're dealing with a Skinwalker. But if that were true, who or what had summoned it? And could it be stopped? The family's terror escalated with each passing night, culminating in an encounter so unthinkable it would drive them to the edge of sanity. Because what they were about to witness next would defy all logic and forever blur the line between folklore and the horrifying unknown. At 3:12 a.m., the phone rang. On the other end was Tom's brother, his voice unmistakable. "Tom, I'm outside, come quick." But Tom's brother was 400 miles away, fast asleep. The call jolted Tom Sherman upright. Sweat beaded on his brow as the words echoed through his mind. With a rifle in one hand and flashlight in the other, Tom crept through the house, heart hammering. Outside, beneath a silvered moon, the ranch lay deathly still. But then, a flicker of movement by the barn. That's when he saw it. A tall, wiry figure stood half-shrouded in shadow. It had the posture of a man, but the hunched, predatory gait of something feral. Tom called out, "Who's there?" But the figure only tilted its head, as if curious. Then, in the exact voice of Tom's brother, it spoke again. "Tom, I need you. Please, come closer." A cold wave of primal fear washed over Tom. He fired a warning shot. The figure didn't flinch, it only laughed. A grotesque, hollow mimicry of human joy. Then, with impossible speed, it darted into the tree line and vanished. The next morning, Tom confirmed what he already suspected. His brother had not called. His brother hadn't even touched a phone that night. The encounter marked a terrifying escalation. Whatever was tormenting them now had the power to mimic not just shape, but voice, emotion, identity. From that night on, the ranch became a theater of the impossible. Gwen reported hearing her own voice coming from the fields, calling to her children in the dead of night. Yet when she checked, the children were sound asleep in their beds. Tools vanished before their eyes. Massive footprints, both human and animal, would appear in newly fallen snow, leading nowhere. Cattle continued to be slaughtered with surgical precision, organs removed without a single drop of blood or sign of struggle. And then there were the orbs. Brilliant spheres of blue light began appearing regularly, gliding silently over the fields. Whenever one approached, the family's animals would panic violently, dogs howling, horses refusing to leave their stalls. On one occasion, Tom chased an orb in his truck. The light danced playfully, always staying just out of reach, weaving through the trees at impossible speeds. And when he returned home, his prize bull, weighing nearly 2,000 pounds, was gone, vanished from a locked corral. Hours later, they found the bull crammed inside a small metal trailer, dazed and uninjured, as if some unseen force had teleported it there. By now, the Shermans were desperate. They sought help from law enforcement, scientists, even psychics. All who visited the ranch left with the same haunted expression, and more questions than answers. Then one elder made a chilling suggestion. If the Skinwalker had been unleashed upon their land, it was no accident. Someone had called it forth. A curse rooted in vengeance had been placed on the property. But who would do such a thing, and why target the Shermans? Before they could seek answers, the entity itself would return, this time with an encounter so intimate, so horrifying, that it would leave the family questioning not only their safety, but their very grip on reality. Gwen awoke to find herself standing in the yard, barefoot, trembling, with no memory of how she got there. And behind her in the darkness, something watched. In the weeks that followed, the Skinwalkers' attacks became deeply personal. It was no longer content to haunt the fields or mimic voices. Now, it was targeting the Shermans directly, invading their minds, their dreams, their bodies. Gwen was the first to experience what the Navajo elders called shadow walking. One night, she awoke outside in the freezing desert air, standing in her nightgown beneath a starless sky. She had no memory of leaving the house. Inside, Tom found the front door still locked from the inside. When Gwen finally regained full awareness, she was hysterical. Through tears, she described a vivid dream. An enormous black wolf pacing at the foot of her bed, its eyes burning red. It had spoken to her in a language she couldn't understand, but one that resonated in her bones. And then, she was outside. Terrified, the family brought in a Navajo medicine man. He confirmed their worst fears. The Skinwalker had breached the household boundary. It was no longer merely an external force. It was inside, manipulating them. He warned them that the creature thrived on fear. The more attention they gave it, the more power it would gain. But suppressing terror was impossible in a home where reality itself seemed to twist. Soon, Tom began seeing figures inside the house. Fleeting glimpses of tall, thin humanoids in the corners of rooms. Their features were obscured, as if blurred by some unseen force. Electronics malfunctioned. Batteries drained instantly. Cameras set to monitor the ranch would be found mangled or completely erased of footage. Most chillingly, their dogs, once fearless, now refused to go outside after dark. On one desperate night, after an aggressive blue orb hovered near the property, Tom's 4 dogs chased after it into the woods and never returned. The next morning, Tom discovered 4 blackened, greasy patches on the ground. No remains, no bones, no sign of struggle. The dogs had simply ceased to exist. But the Skinwalker wasn't finished. One night, Tom himself fell victim to its influence. After days of exhaustion and paranoia, he awoke to find deep scratches across his arms and chest, 3 parallel marks running the length of his torso. He had no memory of inflicting them. The wounds were too deep, too precise to be accidental. Gwen, watching helplessly, noticed her husband growing increasingly distant. His behavior changed, mood swings, violent outbursts, moments of complete disassociation. It was as if something else was wearing him. Desperate, the Shermans made a decision. They would sell the ranch and leave before the Skinwalker consumed them entirely. But as they prepared to leave, an elder issued one final warning. You can flee the land, but if it has touched your spirit, you may never truly be free. With that chilling thought weighing heavily upon them, the Shermans packed their belongings. But the Skinwalker had one final terrifying parting gift, a moment so horrifying it would leave the family scarred forever. As the moving truck idled in the driveway, Tom heard a blood-curdling scream, his wife's voice echoing from the darkened barn. But when he sprinted inside, Gwen was standing beside him, pale, silent, frozen in terror. It was the Shermans' final night on the ranch, a night they would remember with bone-deep dread. They had spent the day packing, every moment shadowed by a gnawing sense that something unseen was watching, waiting. The medicine man had warned them, the Skinwalker may not let you go without a mark. That evening, as dusk fell, the family gathered inside the house. Windows were boarded, salt lined the doorways, but an oppressive silence hung over everything, thick, suffocating. At precisely 2:17 a.m., the spell was broken by a scream so shrill, so filled with mortal terror, that Tom bolted upright from bed. It was Gwen's voice, calling from the barn outside. Without hesitation, Tom grabbed his rifle and charged into the night. The moon was hidden, and the air felt electric, alive with unseen energy. Every instinct screamed that this was a trap, but love and panic propelled him forward. Reaching the barn, Tom swung the door wide, rifle raised. The space was empty, silent. Then came the true horror. Behind him he heard footsteps crunching in the dirt. Light, deliberate. He whirled around. No one, yet the air shifted, and suddenly from the darkest corner of the barn, a shape began to emerge. At first it resembled Gwen, her face, her clothes, her very posture. But something was wrong. Its eyes glowed faintly red. Its movements were unnatural, too fluid, too precise. And then it smiled, a grotesque, knowing grin that sent ice through Tom's veins. The creature spoke in Gwen's exact voice. "Tom, why are you afraid? I'm right here." Tom staggered backward, heart racing. He forced himself to fire, but the bullet passed through the figure as if it were mist. The entity laughed, a sound that echoed unnaturally within the wooden walls. Suddenly, the apparition vanished. Tom fled back to the house, only to find Gwen and the children huddled inside, unaware of what had transpired. Gwen was pale, her pulse rapid. She whispered, "I heard your voice too, calling me from the field." They weren't alone anymore. As dawn approached, the ranch itself seemed to come alive. Lights flickered, doors slammed without cause. Faint voices whispered from every shadow, their words indecipherable but laced with unmistakable malice. And then, without warning, the air inside the house grew ice cold. A low growl reverberated through the floorboards. The family watched in horror as black smoke-like tendrils began to seep through the cracks in the walls, swirling into humanoid forms, faceless, featureless, yet charged with palpable hate. The Shermans had seen enough. They fled the house, driving off the property with no intention of ever returning. As the truck disappeared down the dirt road, Tom looked back one final time. In the distance, standing atop a small hill, was the same tall figure from the barn, its outline shimmering faintly in the morning light. It raised one arm and waved. That was the last the Shermans would ever see of Skinwalker Ranch. But their story, documented and retold, would ignite a storm of interest, drawing new eyes to the cursed land. And soon, forces far greater than the Shermans themselves would arrive, determined to unravel the mystery, or fall victim to it. Within days of acquiring the ranch, the new team set up state-of-the-art surveillance, thermal cameras, radiation sensors, motion detectors. By the end of the first week, 2 scientists had fled in terror. Following the Shermans' harrowing departure, news of the phenomena spread beyond local folklore. Among those captivated was aerospace billionaire Robert Bigelow, head of the National Institute for Discovery Science, NIDS, an organization dedicated to investigating the paranormal. In 1996, Bigelow purchased the property now infamously dubbed Skinwalker Ranch. His mission was clear: bring science to the front lines of the supernatural. A hand-picked team of physicists, biologists, and former military personnel descended upon the ranch, armed with millions of dollars in equipment and an unshakable resolve. What they encountered would challenge their understanding of reality. On their very first night, surveillance captured strange lights weaving through the treetops, bluish orbs that appeared to exhibit intelligence, evading capture and study with unsettling ease. Radiation spikes were recorded, brief, intense bursts localized to specific parts of the property. Yet no known natural source could account for them. Animals again proved to be the most sensitive witnesses. The team's dogs exhibited extreme distress whenever certain areas were approached. refusing to move forward or growling at unseen forces. But the most chilling encounters involved the scientists themselves. One researcher reported an experience eerily similar to Gwen Sherman's. While conducting nighttime observations near the property's western ridge, he suddenly blacked out. Upon regaining consciousness, he found himself standing nearly a quarter mile from his original location. His watch stopped, several hours unaccounted for. Another team member reported hearing a familiar voice calling him from a locked storage room, a deceased relative's voice. When he opened the door, the room was empty. He resigned from the project the next day. And then there were the invisible entities. Thermal imaging on multiple occasions captured humanoid shapes moving through the fields, shapes invisible to the naked eye. One such shape was documented approaching a cow. Minutes later, the animal was found dead, its body exhibiting the same bloodless, surgically precise wounds reported by the Shermans. Perhaps the most terrifying incident involved Dr. Colum Kelleher, a biochemist leading the investigation. While monitoring cameras late one night, he observed a large black mass materializing atop a tree. The shape then unfurled, revealing an impossibly large, wolf-like creature with glowing eyes. As it leapt to the ground, the image distorted, cameras malfunctioned, and the entity disappeared. Despite exhaustive analysis, no evidence of trickery, projection, or technological interference was ever found. Months turned into years, and while the data collected was staggering, EM anomalies, gravitational fluctuations, high-frequency sounds beyond human hearing, it was ultimately inconclusive. The Skinwalker, it seemed, remained one step ahead, elusive, adaptive, sentient. By 2004, after countless resources expended and team members deeply affected both mentally and physically, the NIDS project was shuttered. The ranch returned to private hands, but its legend only grew. Even today, new owners and researchers continue to document unexplained phenomena on the land. The Navajo elders' warning still echoes. There are things in this world beyond understanding. Some should remain undisturbed. But as curiosity draws more seekers to Skinwalker Ranch, one haunting question lingers. Have the Skinwalkers truly been confined to this cursed ground, or have they followed those who dared to cross them? 6 months after leaving the ranch, Tom Sherman's son awoke screaming in the middle of the night, claiming a tall, faceless man was standing at the foot of his bed. But the doors were locked, the alarms untouched, and the same night, Gwen dreamed of glowing red eyes watching her from the darkness. The Shermans had hoped that by abandoning Skinwalker Ranch, they would escape its grip, but the truth was far more disturbing. The curse, it seemed, was not bound by property lines. In the weeks following their move, each family member began experiencing strange phenomena, objects disappearing and reappearing, fleeting shadows in the corners of rooms, eerie voices whispering in the dead of night. Most chilling of all was the overwhelming sense of being watched. No matter where they went, home, school, work, the feeling persisted. Desperate for answers, Tom consulted the Navajo elder who had once warned them. The verdict was grim. The Skinwalker is more than flesh. It is spirit, shadow, and vengeance. If it has touched your soul, you carry part of it with you. Meanwhile, the scientific community remained both intrigued and skeptical. Though NIDS had amassed mountains of anomalous data, no one could definitively prove what haunted the ranch. But something had changed. Researchers who spent extended time on the property reported a common thread: vivid nightmares, sudden illnesses, fractured relationships. It was as if the ranch fed on emotional and psychological distress. One investigator, Dr. John Alexander, later confessed, "There's a sentience there, something that adapts, that learns, and that punishes curiosity." In the years since, Skinwalker Ranch has become a nexus of paranormal fascination. Television crews, thrill seekers, and new owners continue to chase its mysteries. Yet many leave shaken, forever altered. And while skeptics argue that the phenomena can be explained by electromagnetic fields, psychological suggestion, or even elaborate hoaxes, the cumulative weight of first-hand accounts suggests otherwise. As for the Shermans, they chose silence. Rarely do they speak publicly of their ordeal, but in one rare interview, Tom offered a chilling reflection. "I used to think there were rules to this world, that things made sense, but after that place, I'm not so sure anymore." Even now, years later, strange events persist in their lives, fleeting but undeniable. So what exactly is the truth behind the Skinwalkers? Are they ancient beings bound to Navajo legend, a form of spiritual warfare, a window into dimensions beyond human comprehension, or a force neither good nor evil that simply is, feeding on the fear and fascination of those who dare to seek it? Perhaps some mysteries are not meant to be solved. Perhaps the Skinwalker's greatest power is this: no matter how far you run, you can never be certain it didn't follow you home.